I think the one distinction about Hizb ut-Tahrir, the way that they have avoided being banned like other sort of fundamentalist Islamist groups, is that they don't take the violent approach, right? So they tend to do political activities, proselytization,
Right.
but they still want to establish Sharia law in Western countries, and they still want to establish a global Islamic caliphate.
Yeah.
But they
And that
do it more
was
by.
the appeal to me as well, because it was like we're bringing about the Islamic State, but in a non-violent way. So it was like, we're not a threat. We're just bringing ideas and correcting people, and basically, like, we give lectures that would say, like, you're only practicing a third of Islam because there's no state for us to implement the rest. So basically, we're all sinful until we can live in the state and implement all of Islam, or at least if we're not working towards it, we're being sinful. So
But the Islam that they would implement, if that state was theoretically achieved, right, that they would implement would have those violent elements.
100%.
As in,
they're
they
like,
do believe in it, right?
Yeah, you have to have that, but you can't implement that part of the state until there is a state. So like, jihad's a whole big thing, but it's just not
very Muslim Brotherhood.
No,
well, okay. Actually, that's a very good comment.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So the difference between, so if we have like ISIS and then Hizb ut-Tahrir and then Muslim Brotherhood, the difference is that, so the similarities between ISIS and Hizb ut-Tahrir is that they both want to bring the Islamic State. The similarities between Hizb ut-Tahrir and Muslim Brotherhood is that they both are non-violent until they're in power or something like that. But the difference between Muslim Brotherhood and Hizb ut-Tahrir is that Muslim Brotherhood is very much participating in governance right now, and Hizb ut-Tahrir doesn't want to participate in governance right now. Like, they're against the democratic process. The Muslim Brotherhood's entire agenda is to get them to come into power using the democratic process. Right. Do you agree that that's the difference between them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. They use the system to, like, kind of infiltrate it, like, so saturate it. But the Hizb would say that's wrong and it won't ever work because that's not the way the Prophet did it. And the Prophet
and they're right. Work.
Exactly. So they are like, the state will only happen when we do exactly what the Prophet does. So, like, they have their own seerah, and it's called the Islamic State, and it's like the seerah, but in that whole context, on his exact method on how he spread the ideas, get people together, the way they conduct their halakas, and the way they educate people, and the way they teach you how to think, and everything is based off his life and all the hadiths on how he implemented the Islamic State, like letter to letter. Like, they are very adamant about that.
I would very much like to see a debate between a Muslim Brotherhood person and a Hizb ut-Tahrir person, because I do not understand how could the Muslim Brotherhood person win, because the first thing that the Hizb ut-Tahrir person could say is that, listen, the election process, parliaments, presidents, these are European, these are ideas that came out of Western Europe during the Enlightenment era. How on earth could you even pretend that this is anything Islamic? And I do not know how you would defend that. Like, Hizb ut-Tahrir person will win that argument outright. So I don't know. But here's the danger. Like, I don't know, Deborah, if you know this, but let me know if you think this is true, because before ISIS, if non-Muslims who were familiar with the idea of an Islamic State knew of and the idea of Islamic State because of Hizb ut-Tahrir. Like, I know a lot more people figured out, like, oh, this Islamic State is a thing, this global caliphate is something that some Muslims want to bring back because of ISIS. But before that, if any non-Muslims have heard about that, and that goal was because of Hizb ut-Tahrir, they popularized it among non-Muslims before ISIS.
The word that they're constantly saying is caliphate, khilafah, Islamic State, everything.
Do you think the Hizb ut-Tahrir red pilled a whole bunch of people into the ISIS?
I wonder.
It was like a, what's it called? What was it? A gateway drug for, like, some people to go from, like,
In the UK, they call the Hizb a conveyor belt to terror people.
So basically, the way it works, it's a gateway. Like some people suggest, I don't know how accurate this is that you're just an average Muslim minding your business, not doing like anything Islamic or just doing the minimal. And then Hizb ut-Tahrir introduces you to the idea of that we need to bring on the Islamic State back, and then through peaceful means, and then you get so excited, yes, Islamic State, we need to bring it back. And then at some point you might be like, I don't think we could achieve that. Like it doesn't seem like it's possible using the Hizb ut-Tahrir method, and then you look into other groups that might be interested in bringing it.
Also, the way they culture you once you're in, it's very methodical. Like it's so cult-like. Like the way they teach you, like so they like if they have these fired up youth that like could go that way, they have a way of like just like no, and then like they culture you till you're like thinking exactly like them. Like I'm telling you, they all have their way they speak. That's why like when we're watching stuff with Majid, it's like I can like you still see that way in him. It was like really
you really okay. So Majid, you still see some Hizb ut-Tahrir in the way Majid speaks.
Yeah, Majid, like it's just in you.
Explain, elaborate.
Just the way like they not like lay things out and explain things in like a systematic way, and how like they manipulate the things into saying no, it's just a discussion and we're not having an argument. And that's what I was saying. We're doing like, oh my God, it's sounding like.
I may have missed it, but did we mention that Nawaz was involved in recruiting your husband to Hizb ut-Tahrir? Right.
Oh yeah.
This is back at the time when Majid was a member.
So while he was a member in the UK, he was actually Mazen's teacher. My ex's teacher, and he was his like mas'ul, they call them. So they culture them. So you do your full like teachings with him, and he became a member under him, and he up until he was imprisoned in Egypt. And then I guess that's my.
So basically, your life got screwed because of Majid Nawaz.
No, he could probably would have come across them too, but.
So Majid Nawaz basically recruited your husband into Hizb ut-Tahrir, and you got recruited into Hizb ut-Tahrir because of your husband. Yeah. So technically, you became radicalized because of Majid Nawaz. Yeah. Okay.
Although I never became a full member. I was just I didn't want to become a full member because there's so much responsibility on you. But I was like being taught under them and everything the whole time.